Hi, I'm Kit Slies, life coach and licensed psychologist, and I'm here to inspire your inner calm, confidence, and to also help you set and hold clear boundaries confidently and calmly. And today I'm talking about finding confidence when it comes to clarity. Clarity about how you're feeling. Maybe there's clarity that you're seeking in a particular decision that you want to make. Maybe you are somebody who struggles to make decisions and you tend to waver or spend a lot of time on decisions that feels like more time than you want to spend on those decisions. Or you might look often to other people to help you decide for you. It could be as simple as deciding what to eat, or it could be big life decisions, something in your career, your business, relationships, right? So today I want to talk about 5 activities or 5 concepts that can help you find that clarity and overcome any self-doubt that you're having in owning your clarity and feeling confident about how you're feeling about things and and stating that to yourself and to the world. So the first thing that I want you to think about is, are you in touch with your emotions? So even in this moment, if I asked you right now, what are you feeling emotionally? Are you able to name an emotion? If you are struggling with that, or if you tend to struggle with that, the first thing that you're going to want to do in this journey of finding clarity and increased confidence is get to know your emotions. Um, you can look up some feelings wheels. There's a number of them on the interwebs here that just list out a bunch of different emotions, and just start practicing identifying a word. If you're really struggling with that, you can also identify a body sensation. Do you feel it in your chest, in your face, in your cheeks, in your feet? Where do you feel it? And then try to connect um, to that feeling and then see what else comes up for you. And then you begin to connect body sensations with feeling words, and you get better and better over time at being able to name your feeling. Why are emotions important? Emotions guide us. They're there for a reason. Yes, there are emotions that sometimes we react to in not the most helpful way, but our emotions are also our inner wisdom. And we get to kind of check in with our emotions and how we're feeling and say, oh, is this a thing that's really important to pay attention to and act on or react to in a kind, responsible, mature way? Or is this a feeling that's just sort of a gut reaction that maybe there is some wisdom there that I can just pay attention to, but I don't necessarily need to act on it? So it's important to pay attention to your emotions. There's lots of reasons why people struggle to do that. I'm not going to go into all of those today, but the good news is that it is something that you can practice and get better at. If it feels really scary, then you might want to think about getting some professional help, some therapy or coaching or something like that. So once you know your emotions, then the next thing you're going to want to do is ask yourself, do you know what your values are? So values in general are just guiding principles, ideas, behaviors that resonate with our deepest inner core true self of things that are important to us. Your values are different than mine, and that's good and okay. And they're different from other people around you, even people who you're really close with. So a couple of months ago, actually, I had this conversation with my husband because even though we talked about values in our dating time, um, we hadn't really done like a full compare and contrast and what does this mean for us, for our lives and the lives that we're building together. And it was a really cool conversation where we kind of looked at our different values and then kind of created some combined family values that, even though we had some different values, they were complementary and we were able to come up with some cool family values. But So the question is, do you know what your values are? Again, you can look up on the interwebs just a list of values and see what kind of resonates with you and fine tune that over time. Or the other thing that you can do is really think about your life. This is why knowing your emotions is important, because if you think about your life and when you're feeling really lovely emotions, you're feeling happy, content, at peace, calm, inner calm, maybe confident, right? Some of the things that I like to talk about in these videos. And you think about what are times historically throughout your life when you feel those emotions. And then you look at what's going on there. What are you doing? What kind of behaviors or activities are you engaged in? That's going to be some indication that those things are important to you. And you relate that to bigger values. And you could state a value broadly, like a family could be a value, or it could be more specific, like doing like playing baseball with my kids. Like that could be the thing that you really value. Okay. Um, so that's a fun way to kind of get to know your values a little bit. And there are some deeper ways to explore those values as well, but just start to get to know them and don't feel like you have to know perfectly your values. Our values can change a little bit over time. Sometimes our values, like the hierarchy of how important they are, that can kind of shift even if the values kind of remain relatively stable. And they do often remain relatively stable, but there's some shifting around in them over time, and that's okay. So know your emotions, know your values. Once you know those two things, those are a huge core for yourself. Okay. And those are going to be really important for any of the other activities that you're doing to try to find clarity on just life or decisions that you're trying to make. So if you are faced with a particular decision that you're just really not sure, oh, this one feels really good, but also there's some really major drawbacks. This one has these benefits, but also drawbacks as well. I need to make a decision. I really don't know which way to go. I like the old-fashioned pro-con list, but I like to update it, incorporating one's values. So what you can do, and even if there's more than just two decisions, you can go through all the options that you have. In fact, that might be part of finding clarity as well, is getting creative, listing out options that don't even feel feasible or possible. This is a time when asking people, if you feel comfortable, might be helpful. Hey, what would you do in this situation? Not to go with what they're saying, but to sometimes you get a response, you're like, huh, I never thought of that. Okay, how does that fit with my values and my pro cons? So get as many ideas as it makes sense to have. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make a pro con list for each option that you have available, right? So the pros are, if you were to make this decision and go with option A, what are all the potential benefits that you can foresee? Realizing that we're not complete fortune tellers, it's not going to be perfect. And then what are all the cons, the drawbacks? Sometimes this is clarifying enough. You get a list that's like full of all the pros and there's just a few cons and that's really clear. But sometimes the pros and cons seem pretty evenly spread out through all of them, or there's like some cons that just feel a lot bigger um, than like a bunch of the smaller cons on another list. So what you can do with a pro con list is go through and think about, how does this pro relate to a value of mine? And then rank that. So name the value. Okay, this relates to the value of family. This relates to my value of autonomy. This relates to my value of having fun, having free time. Okay. And then you want to say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this thing as it relates to my value? And go ahead and rank that. And you do that for each item on your list. Personally, I like to make a little symbol for my value, so I have a nice little visual representation. You don't have to be a fancy artist to do that. It just helps provide you a little bit more visual data. And then you have a really clear picture of how these different decisions are going to impact particular values to you and what is the weighted importance to you. You might have like a bunch of 8, 9s, 10s in one column of pros. And then even though you had a bunch of cons, they're all like 3 or 4s as far as how important it is to you. And those values in that column also don't feel maybe as significant. And now you have a little bit more clarity that those pros, they're more weighted. Maybe those values are bigger in your mind at this point in your life. Now you have more clarity about that decision. So that's pro con list. So we've got knowing our emotions, knowing our values, making pro con lists when you're really stuck in decisions. Another activity that can be helpful is something called mental contrasting. Mental contrasting is actually, usually we use this to help folks move forward with achieving a goal or be successful in achieving a goal. But I think that it's also really helpful to provide mental clarity and confidence when you're contemplating something that you want to be working towards, but maybe have some hesitation about. So mental contrasting takes, you're going to contrast two different mental states. You're going to use like a positive visualization of having achieved some goal or the positive emotional state that you expect to have with making some decision. This is that sort of positive thinking visualization. Athletes use this one a lot, right? Like they visualize themselves making that play perfectly, just how they want to do it, how they've practiced it a million times. And there's a lot of evidence that can be helpful. Of course, the critique of this sort of positive thinking is that it doesn't account for like the fact that life isn't really always positive and stuff comes up that's hard, right? So with mental contrasting, you're going to imagine, again, you're going to visualize some future state and the positive feel good emotions. And you might even visualize how you got there or just really how you're going to feel once you've done the thing. Maybe you're procrastinating on this thing, or again, you're just having some clarity about, I know this thing might be important, but I'm not really sure that I really want to do it. And so you're going to imagine the positive aspect of this future state. And again, maybe the steps, the positive aspect of the steps that you took to get there. But then we're going to contrast that with the counterpoints, right? So what's all the stuff that's holding you back? What do you foresee are going to be the barriers to you getting to this positive state? And again, you're not a mind reader, you're not going to know all the answers to this, but just think about what are the kind of the big scary monsters under the bed that are cropping up in your mind that come to mind as, oh, if I do this thing, then I'm going to have to do this, this, and this, and that doesn't feel good. What are all those things that don't feel good? And then you're going to identify, well, even if those not so feel good things happen, how am I going to cope with them? So this might be external coping. Are there resources that you can utilize, external supports, tools that you can apply, or it might also be internal coping. In other words, it's going to feel really hard and I'm going to be stressed. And I know that in order to manage my stress, I need to make sure that I'm doing X, Y, and Z. Prioritizing sleep, spending time with friends, doing hobbies, things that are fun and important to me. Okay. And then with mental contrasting, I like to also go back to that positive visualization, knowing that you've got all the icky barriers or tough stuff, but now you've like elicited your coping, and that positive state can feel so much richer. The way that I think that this helps with finding clarity is that sometimes you might go through those barriers and you might say, you know what, that actually doesn't feel worth it to me for the thing that I'm working towards. Or you might say, oh my gosh, I was making such a big deal out of these barriers in my mind. And really, when I think about the potential reward of making this decision, these things are like nothing. I could totally handle them and cope with them. And this is so much more worth it. So that's mental contrasting as it applies to finding clarity. And then the last activity that I'm going to give you is something called stream of consciousness journaling. And this is just where you sit down and you set a timer for yourself, maybe 10 minutes, where you're going to write, ideally freehand, with a pen or a pencil, not necessarily typing. Um, you're going to just write. And there's no journal prompt. You're not thinking about what you're going to write about. The only sort of rule that you have to follow for this kind of journaling is that you can't stop moving your writing utensil. So even if you sit down and you're like, I have no idea what to write. I watched this video and Kit told me to do this thing. She told me to not stop moving the pen or pencil. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm moving it and nothing's coming to mind. And this is stupid. Just keep doing that, because what often happens if you give yourself like a chunk of time, 10, 15 minutes, is that your mind just goes to work and things come out in that writing that might not come out in just trying to reflect up here in our mind. Stream of consciousness journaling can be very powerful. It's a very cool tool. You might have to do it several times. Um, and you might arrive at clarity at the thing that you're thinking about. I think typically if it is something that's weighing on your mind, it's going to come out in the journaling. Or you might find clarity on something else. Or you might end up with more questions and answers sometimes, but sometimes that's a good thing too. And that's helpful at arriving at some point at more clarity and confidence. Another technique you can use is called future self. I'll put a link down below to a video that I already have on that one, because I think this video is probably long enough. So I hope you found these tools helpful to help you find clarity in making decisions and just feeling more confident and getting over any self-doubt, feeling more connected with your deepest, truest core in the world, even if you feel like that most of the time, or even some of the time, you tend to defer to others or just feel confused about how you're feeling. Um, just keep practicing, and you can get that clarity and confidence. Bye for now.